Hey there, it's Liz from No Trace, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make a zipper pouch using an old denim painter's apron. This is a super fun upcycling project, so let's get right into it. In order to upcycle an old apron with paint on it into a zipper pouch, you're going to need a few basic supplies. So obviously you're going to need your apron. Now this one I've already cut quite a bit. I've already been making pouches from it. But any old apron will do, and I'll walk you through how you take it apart. You're also going to need another fabric to become the liner of your pouch, and you'll have those measurements after you figure out the measurements from your apron. So you want to have maybe a half a yard or less of fabric to do the liner fabric, and we'll get those measurements later. You're going to need a seam ripper to take your apron apart and salvage as much material as you can. You're going to need scissors, obviously, and I like to cut with I prefer to cut with a rotary cutter and a quilting ruler, so that's a great option. And you'll need a zipper, but again, the length that you're going to need is going to depend on the size of the panels that you cut from your apron. So we'll get to that step too when we get to it. You're also going to need your zipper foot to make a zipper pouch. And then I also recommend getting a heavy duty needle. So these are super heavy duty because I'm sewing through denim that has paint on it. But if you get the, I think it's 100 or 16/100, that should work too. And even the universal needle, which is like 14, I think, I don't know exactly. The universal needle might work, but I would recommend getting a more heavy duty sewing needle for your machine. So the first thing that you're going to want to do with your apron is to take apart the seams. So I used the seam ripper and I painstakingly pulled apart all of the hems to make the sides as wide as possible. So I did it on all of the different sides of the apron. And then I also pulled apart the apron strap. So I took a seam ripper and opened up the apron strap so that now I have some strapping pieces that I'll also sew together to make a pouch, but you can save those for another project. I'll show you how to do that in a different video. But for this video, you want to make sure that the main body of your apron is opened up as much as possible. And then we're going to start to cut it down into rectangles to make our pouches. Okay, so I've already cut off like the top panels of this apron and bottom parts. And what we're left with now is the center part that has a ton of paint on it and is pretty stiff in certain areas. So if you can see, it doesn't really bend easily. So my recommendation is for your first pouch, start with the spot that bends the most. Okay, so you want to create your panels in places that are the most bendy so that you can have success with a less challenging pouch to start with, and then you can move into the areas that are really going to be hard to sew through. So on this part of the apron, the area that's going to be the easiest to work with first is going to be these two side pieces here. So there's going to be some stiffness, but it's not going to be as stiff as if I were to try to sew through this spot on the apron that's real stiff. Okay, so we're going to cut off these two side pieces to make our zipper pouch. Where I get out my ruler and I'm going to line it up with the edge of this pocket material that's super stiff, and we're going to save that and make that into a beautiful pouch too. But I'm going to cut right here. You might have a spot that is too hard to get close to. Like right here, my rotary cutter couldn't quite get there, so I'll just go in with my scissors and cut. Okay, so here's our first panel. And you can always add to the shape. So this would be like a pencil pouch sort of size, and I'll probably box the corners to make it, to give it a little more balance. But you could also add a piece of fabric from one of the straps, for example, to make it even larger if you wanted to. But we're going to keep this one simple and use this panel, and then come on over here and cut this side off of the apron. And again, there's going to be some spots that might be too thick for your rotary cutter, like up here. And this is where the scissors come in handy. Okay. So now we have two panels that have been cut off the sides. They should be the same size because we cut them off from the same spots on the apron. But we want to just line them up and measure. And yeah, they seem to line up with one another really well. So now we can measure them and write down the measurement so that we can get it out of our liner fabric. So this is 12 inches wide and 6.5 inches tall. Okay, so our liner fabric needs to match this to be 12 inches wide and 6.5 inches tall. Now I've decided I'm actually going to add a little height to this pouch. So I'm going to use the straps that I cut off from this bag, and we're going to attach them to the bottom with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to cut these pieces of strap to be the same width as these panels, which is 12 inches. So I'm going to cut these to 12 inches. Now this edge isn't perfectly straight, and that's okay. Straighten that out. And then we're going to cut it to 12 inches. And again, cut it to 12 inches. Okay. Then we're going to pin this or clip it. Actually, we're going to use clips because this material is a little thick. And like I always say in my videos, I like to use metal office clips, metal office binder clips, because I try to avoid buying plastic when I can. And I had these laying around the house. So I would encourage you to just use what you have. And there are sewing specific clips that you could buy, but I haven't seen any metal ones. And I'm noticing that this was not cut to a perfect straight edge, so I'm just going to even it out a bit. And that's one of the things that you'll notice when you're, upcycling. You're working with a material that's not a perfect brand new piece of cotton from the fabric store, is that, it's going to have some character. It's not going to be super cookie cutter. But I still like to do my best to make it transform it into something as awesome as I can. But when you're cutting around, thick areas of paint, it's not going to come out as perfect as just regular old fabric. It's going to be a little more challenging to work with. So you'll probably have more spots where things aren't as even as you thought they were. So just even things out as you work, as you go along. Just go ahead and even out whatever you need to even out. Now I'm going to take this over to my machine, and I'm going to stitch with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, or 3/8 inch or so, straight down the edges here to make this pouch a little bit taller, just so it feels a little more balanced. Okay, so I've attached the straps to the bottom edge of the bag, or of the panel, I mean, and now we're gonna measure it again to figure out what size to cut the liner fabric. So these should still be 12 inches wide. Yes, they are. And now they are 8 inches tall, okay? So 12 by 8 is what we're gonna make the liner fabric for these two panels right here. All right, so with these two panels that we cut, I cut some liner fabric that's the same size, same dimensions, and I'm gonna be attaching them to the zipper. I've already attached 2 pieces to the zipper, and I actually had to make the zipper a little bit longer, so I added a little bit of denim fabric on the end because I didn't have a zipper that was quite the right size. So I added a little tab on the end there. So now I'm going to be attaching this piece of denim to the other side of the zipper with some clips. And you want the right side of the zipper facing the right side of the denim. And then once it's clipped all along, then we're going to take our other piece of lining fabric and add it into the clips. And then we're going to take it over to the sewing machine and just stitch straight along this edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance using a zipper foot. Okay, so I've attached the lining fabric and the outer fabric to the zipper, made a little zipper sandwich there. And what I'm going to do next is press that seam really well at the iron, and then I'm going to do a top stitch to really keep that fabric in place so it doesn't get caught in the zipper. All right, so I've top stitched, and in the next step we are going to open up our zipper, at least part way, and then we're going to flip the bag so that the 2 outside pieces are touching and the 2 liner pieces are touching. And then we're going to clip all around the edges, and I like to start my clips at the seam with the zipper and make sure it's lined up really nicely with the zipper teeth facing down towards the liner fabric, and put a clip right there. And then I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Make sure that the the zipper teeth are pointed down into the liner fabric. And add a clip. And then I'm going to clip up around the other sides, but I'm going to leave this area open so that I can turn the bag right side out. And I'm also going to add a little no trace tag on one side of the outer fabric, and I'm going to add a little denim loop over on the side. Okay, so I've clipped all the sides, and I added a little denim loop and a no trace tag onto the side, and those are clipped in place with this clip right here. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch all the way around with about a 3/8 inch seam allowance, leaving about 4 or 5 inches open on the side. And when I get to this area of the fabric that's really stiff, you can iron it and then it'll sew more easily. So I'm going to give this a little iron and then take it to the machine and start stitching. Okay, so I've stitched all the way around the pouch and we're almost done. What we're going to do next is turn the pouch right side out, and then we're going to be closing up this opening. And again, if it feels really stiff, like right now this is pretty stiff, I'm going to go ahead and give it a little press at the iron, and then I can turn it around more easily. All right, so I just gave it a quick press and now it's softer. and it's a little easier to turn it right side out. You do have to work kind of quick because it starts to cool as soon as you take it away from the iron, obviously. And you'll probably want a chopstick to really get into the corners. And again, if it's gotten really stiff again before you got to the corner, just take it over to the iron again and press it again. All right, so with a lot of ironing, I was able to push those corners out nicely. And I've got the lining out here, and I need to stitch up this opening. I'll use a 1/8 inch seam allowance to close that up. Okay, so I've stitched it closed. Now I'm just going to push the liner into the pouch and go all the way around and trim any loose threads. And then the pouch is done. I think I might have forgotten to say also that if you are working with a fabric that has a paint or a resin on it, make sure that you protect your iron before you iron it, because this will come off on the iron. So I always use a little cloth when I iron the bags. I hope you had fun making an upcycled denim zipper pouch with me. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the No Trace channel and get notified about our new videos. We have a new video coming out every Wednesday. So I'll see you soon. Bye.